Greetings, peeps, and welcome to Humanities Through the Arts, IHU 101 online. I'm very happy that you could join our course, and I look forward to getting to know each of you, if only through the magic of the internet and cyberspace. So, welcome, and let's get started. First, a little bit about me. I am a full-time professor of music at Delta College. And in addition to my duties in teaching music theory, music history, history of jazz, history of rock, I am also the director of choral activities at Delta College. In case you didn't know, we have 3 very fine choral ensembles at Delta College. If you'd like to know more about the choirs, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to talk your ear off about those. Other than that, I've been teaching now at Delta for, a little over 20 years. And I've been teaching this course for about 4 years now. This course is still relatively new. We'll talk more about the structure of the course, but it's a great course. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, it's a interesting topic to discuss. So you'll find out a little bit more about me through the discussion topics and through the About Your Professor section of our D2L site. So without further ado, let's get right into our course. Essentially, this course is a survey of the arts through the lens of music. Since I'm a professor of music, obviously I'm going to be talking about art in the sense of a musical framework. Obviously, we're not going to be talking only about music, but we're going to be looking at various forms of art, but through this lens of music. And you'll see what I mean as we go along. But first and foremost, we'll be examining various forms of art such as painting and sculpture, architecture and theater, and of course music and cinema. Now, we are not going to be able to cover all of the topics that we find in our online text. We just simply do not have enough time. A little more about that as we talk about our scheduling processes, but just be aware we are going to be looking at some various forms of art, and we're going to be discussing those forms, and your readings are going to be based on those forms, and therefore your quizzes are going to be based on those. And again, a little bit more about that a little later. We're going to be exploring some introspective topics, such as what is art, and what does it mean to be a critic of the arts. So a lot of this stuff that you're going to be looking at within the context of, you know, how you're going to be assessed, quizzes, things like that, those are going to be pretty much what do you think type of questions. So folks, on the outset, just let me say, this is not an incredibly difficult course, okay? That can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. So just bear with me as we kind of walk through what's going to be expected of you. For example, in the way of assignments, the majority of the assignments will come in the form of readings on our online text. And so these are going to be incorporating quizzes, and within those quizzes are some short written like essay questions. So don't be alarmed, you're not going to have to write a huge paper, but there are some short essay questions that you're going to have to answer. And while I'm on this subject of the quizzes, just let me say, no 2 quizzes in this course are alike. So what one student gets in the form of quiz questions is not going to be the same as another student. They're all going to be mixed together. So yeah, that's why grading this course for the instructors is a little bit difficult. And we have to sort of wait until everybody, you know, puts their 2 cents in before we can actually start putting in grading. Now, it's not that we can't grade you individually, we can and we do, but just be aware that it's easier on us if we kind of see how the trend is going. So if people are turning in assignments and answering quizzes on a regular basis, we look at the grade scale on that. How are people doing before we begin to assign these final grades to your quizzes. So just be aware that has to do with the academic integrity aspect of the course. Additionally to those quizzes and readings, there are going to be a few what I call podcast rebroadcasts. Now, again, we're in this time crunch here of a very short semester, only seven weeks. So we don't have time to do the normal podcast series that I normally do with this course. In the fall and winter semesters, when I have a full 16 weeks, I do a podcast series where I go out into the community and I invite local artists to come on my show, and we feature some clips of their concerts. So it's a lot of fun. What you're going to be viewing here will be some rebroadcasts of those performances, and I'll be basing questions in our discussion topics on those rebroadcasts. And you're going to see about those, you're going to learn about those very quickly, and they're very easy to get under your belt. So don't stress on those, but just be aware you're going to be expected to watch these and to comment on them, and your comments will be based on questions that are posed to you. So that'll be in the discussion topic. I'll ask you specific questions about the podcast, and these questions will also be related to materials on our online text. So you'll submit your answers to those through our e-learning D2L site. So none of the assignments are too awfully complex or difficult. They are largely based on, like I said, what do you think and what do you see or observe type questions. So in other words, your answers should be based largely on your own experience within the arts. And that's kind of what we're doing here, is we're looking at this through a lens of music, yes, but we're looking at the human experience of art. In other words, how do we as humans react to the arts and sculpture, theater, music, architecture, those types of things. We want, we're exploring how humans react to these things. How do we respond to these things? And because no two humans really react in the same way, it makes for some very interesting discussions, and it also makes for some very interesting topics to put on our discussions. So lots of cool stuff. Our course is structured so that it's divided into 4 sections. Each of these sections focus on specific areas of what is considered to be the arts. As such, each section contains various assignments that come in the form of readings and writings and viewing, either through our online text or through vid links that are provided on either our e-learning D2L site or on our online text. An important aspect to consider is the time frame, the timeline that we're looking at here. It's important that you understand this course takes place during a very shortened, concentrated semester, okay? Like I said, only 7 weeks. We don't have the luxury of a full 16 weeks. So therefore, we got to use the time that we have available to us wisely. So it's for this reason that I have not assigned any date ranges to any of the assignments other than everything becomes due on the last day of our course, August 20th. So if it seems unusual to you, I agree with you that is unusual. I don't do this in a normal semester because I can meet things out on a regular basis, but not in 7 weeks. There's just too much material and too much to do. So understand then that all of the assignments, the readings, the podcast rebroadcast, everything, discussion topics, they're going to remain open for the entire semester, and none of it is going to become due until the last day. Now, that does not mean that, you need to wait until the last day to get everything done. In fact, that's the worst possible thing you could do. My advice to you is you work at your own pace. You get assignments done as you can. Look ahead, see what's coming up. There's only 4 sections. So you work it out in your own way. And I'm not going to be hounding you unless I see that you haven't turned in anything in a while, or any activity in a while, and I'm obviously going to approach you at that point. So, as our course officially started on June 29th, we are now at the start of our 3rd week, at the very beginning, today being Monday, July 13th. We're at the very beginning of this 3rd week. So this gives us, since our course ends on August 20th, this gives us a little over 5 weeks remaining to complete the assignments and the readings and the quizzes. While this isn't a great deal of time, you might think of it in terms of what it would be like in a face-to-face lecture setting. If this were in a concentrated semester in a face-to-face setting, we'd be meeting 2 to 3 times a week, probably for 2 to 3 hours a session, or in some cases, 1 day a week for the entire day for 7 hours. Grueling, yes, I've taught those before, and I don't care for them. I don't know of a solitary professor that does, but in some cases, it's simply necessary. In our case, you get to choose when you log on, when you do assignments, when you complete them, and so forth. So, in a way, it is very much easier than a face-to-face course, but in a way, there's a danger. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a little while. So just understand that this gives you some idea, right, of the commitment that's expected of you in a concentrated semester. By allowing you to have time, just one due date for all the coursework, you're able to work at your own pace, on your own schedule, and in your own time frame. So the only downside to this occurs if you happen to be a person that is not very structured to begin with, it's easy to forget, right? It's easy to put things off and say, well, I'll get to it tomorrow. Well, all of a sudden, tomorrow's going to come around and you're not going to have any time to complete these assignments. So to avoid a tearful situation later on, I urge you, take some time to complete these assignments, maybe even if it's just like one section a week. It's not that much material to cover, really, when you look at it. And then, if you do that over the next 5 weeks, you've got, over the next 4 weeks, and we have 5 weeks remaining, you've got some adjustment time available to you toward the end. So please do that. Consider this when you're making decisions about when you're going to be completing assignments. You might think, okay, yeah, I can take this weekend and go out of town, but remember, you've got these assignments that come due. So, folks, again, please understand, I get it. It's summer, okay? Everyone goes on vacations, usually, even if they're just short little things, and everybody has time off. Even professors have time off. So I get that this is a much more laid-back approach. The problem occurs when you don't, regularly check in, and you just kind of put this on the back burner until you get back home, and then you realize, holy crap, I was supposed to get this done, and now I've only got 2 days to complete all this coursework. So don't let that happen to you. You have some online tools and resources. Obviously, e-learning, these are things that you're going to have. On e-learning is you'll find our course syllabus, our detailed course calendar, podcast links, discussion topics, announcements and communications from me, the lecture vid links that I will be providing for you periodically. And then on our online text, and by the way, this is required, you can't pass this course without it. On the online text are all of the readings, all of the quizzes and writing assignments, those short essays I was talking about. Then also on the online text are these examples, photographs, right? Pics of the works of art, the paintings, the sculptures, things like that. And in some cases where it's applicable, for example, in the theater side of things, there may be embedded links for you to follow to YouTube vids of theatrical performances and things like that. Not entire shows, but excerpts from, so you can get a taste of what we're talking about. Let's talk a little bit about attendance and grading. I will record your attendance every week, okay? It's kind of interesting to me that we're on an online course, 100% online, and it is asynchronous, which means there's no set meeting time, right? Either virtually or in person. We just do this at our own pace individually. So your attendance, like your grade, is determined by your engagement in the course. If you fail to log in on a regular basis, at least once weekly, you're going to receive the communication from me asking, hey, what's going on? I haven't noticed you logging in recently. So this is something that you really need to do. So just make it a point every week, at least once a week. Pick a day. Say Mondays is the day I'm going to log into Humanities Through the Arts, okay? Log into e-learning, check into our online text, read a chapter or two or whatever it is that's called for in the assignments. That's where you look at the detailed course schedule that tells you what you're supposed to be doing. That's going to be your attendance. Then I can give you full credit. If I see that you're not logging in on a regular basis, you're not communicating with me, you're not completing assignments, then I'm going to say something to the effect of, hey, I need to hear from you, what's going on? And if you don't respond, well, that can and will affect your grade. So please make it a point to log in at least once a week, just to make sure you're being engaged in the course. Your grade is based solely on the amount of effort and participation you put into the course, okay? You don't put anything in, you're not going to make a very good grade. You do the work, you complete the assignments, remain engaged in the course, participate in the discussion topics, view the podcast rebroadcasts, and comment on them as you are asked to, you're going to make an A. No issues there. As far as how assignments are graded, assignments will be graded periodically, but not on any regular schedule. And this is for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, that because everyone is operating on a different schedule, and in most cases, and in fact all cases, the quizzes that are presented to you as students, they're different. Each quiz is different for each student. It's the same material, but the questions are either posed in a different way with different wording, or they're asking for different information. Remember, this is a big topic, the arts. So there's a lot of info we can glean from what we're reading, and therefore, more than one answer can be given to various questions, and more than one way of asking a question, obviously. But this allows us as much flexibility as possible so that you can utilize the time that's available to you. So just understand, you're not going to receive a grade immediately, but you will eventually receive a grade. Some portions of the assignment, such as the quizzes, are actually graded automatically. However, the short written essays, those are graded separately and individually. So these may take a bit longer to receive a grade as the students will be completing these assignments at different times. So just be aware it's going to take a bit. If at any time you have a question about your grade, just simply email me and we can talk about it. The podcast rebroadcasts and other discussion topics are graded, obviously, separately because they're not on the online text. My aim here is for you to participate in them. So if you participate in these, you're going to receive 100% credit. If you don't participate in them, you're not going to receive any credit, and that's not going to count towards your, obviously that's going to count towards your final grade and will affect your final grade. So do it. Yes, they're important. You have to participate in them. Participation varies depending upon the topic and the questions and the materials that are associated with the topic. If you have questions about any of these particular discussion topics, podcast rebroadcast, or any of the other assignments, simply email me, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Okay, so I get it. If you have a question, please email me. Staying on track is going to be an issue. As I said, our course is asynchronous. There's no set meeting times. All of the assignments remain open and will come due on August 20th. That's an entire, what did I say, a little over 5 weeks that you've got. It's going to be easy to forget about these because there's no schedule to follow other than getting things completed by the last day of the class. Please don't wait until the last day of class. Be very careful here. It's very easy in this type of setting to just allow too much time to go by and you just forget about assignments completely. Believe me, this just happens, okay? So please, I can't stress this enough. Do not fall into that trap. There are 4 sections to our course. Try to complete 1 section a week with the remaining 5 weeks of our course, right? That gives you a little bit of extra room if needed toward the end of the semester. Don't forget, you also have to participate in the online discussions, topics, watching the podcast rebroadcast, and so forth. So use your time wisely and don't forget, don't let too much time go by before you check in. Okay, let's take a look now at our e-learning site, navigating around that, and our online text. Okay, folks, so when you first log into our e-learning D2L site, you'll come to a page that looks very much like this, and you will see all the courses that you are enrolled in for the semester. In my case, we see the courses that I'm teaching for this semester, so yours will look a little bit different. But you're going to want to scroll down to our class, which is Humanities Through the Art, IHU 101, and click on that. And you'll be brought to a page that looks like this, which is our courses D2L homepage. And you can see here all of the announcements up here on this left side, and eventually there'll be a little blurb about me, your professor. But you can see here all of our announcements on the left, and then you can also see on the right, you can see upcoming events. Please do not confuse this with the detailed course schedule or course calendar, but this does show you what's due when, sort of. So just be aware that that's what this is. To get to the real heart of the situation, we go to the Contents tab. And on the Contents tab, we find things such as the course syllabus, which you've probably already skimmed through, course requirements, and so forth. We also have course description, required textbook, assignments, grading, that type of thing. Now, while all of this is true and accurate, you should remember that most of this is designed for the full semester, which is a 16-week semester. So I'm going to give you the breakdown of these very same things in, well, I already did give it to you in the other, first portion of this vid. So, but here's the detailed course schedule. You can see here everything began on June 20th,
everything will come due on on August 20th. So, and this gives you a description of what we're talking about through each section. Within this detailed course calendar, you see, for example, the first section contains the introduction, chapters 1 and 2, and then section 2 contains chapters 3, 4, and 5, and also your first podcast performance rebroadcast. We'll talk a little bit more about that as it becomes available for you, and so on. So you all have the ability to read, I'm sure, or you wouldn't be taking a college level course. So if you do have questions about the detailed course schedule, please do email me. But just understand, even though this is a schedule, for us, it doesn't really apply as a schedule simply because everything started on June 20th. Everything's going to end on August 20th. So just be aware that this exists. You can also see and click on each individual section. You can see what is here, what is on each section, what you're going to be looking at. So I encourage you just to take a look at these, and there might be some slight differences here and there, but everything should pretty much line up. Okay, so that's pretty much what we have on our e-learning site, with the exception of the discussion topics. For those, we go to the Activities tab and we go to Discussions. And then we have this first discussion topic, which is Who Are You? And you can see there have already been 16 threads and 45 posts. And in order to post, you must subscribe to the topic. So just understand that all of that is there. And then you have some things here that give you something to think about, but also something to comment on. So you can read any one of these posts just by clicking on the post heading, and gives you who that is and a little bit about themselves, and then you can respond to that post. So you can just click reply to respond. Okay, so I hope this kind of gives you a little bit of a rundown. Once we get to the podcast rebroadcast, those links will appear here in our contents page as well. And I will alert you in plenty of time for you to observe those and what they are. Now, as far as our online text goes, that's a little bit more of a trick. While the online textbook is not quite ready to purchase at our bookstore, everyone should be aware that you do have the option of getting a 2-week free trial period for our online text. And I encourage you to do that if you have not already done so, especially if you're waiting on financial aid monies to pay for the online text. We had a little bit of an issue in that the publisher sent me the wrong ISBN number, so we're trying to get that worked out so that we can indeed get the online text through our bookstore. And as soon as they get that available, you will be notified by me. But if you click on this online text link, what happens is that brings you to this little module, and then you have another link that you can click on. And this, of course, brings you to the McGraw-Hill Connect sign-in page. So you would type in your email address and password and click on the sign in button. So after you have signed in, you're brought to a page that should look very much like this. Now, you can click on this menu, which brings you up to these types of things to do, calendar, classes. I wouldn't fool with this at all because it's not really showing you anything. Remember, all of our assignments have been designed so that they are due on the last day of the class. So just for the sake of, looking at this, I'd stay away from the menu and stick to the regular, just the course view. So when you do click onto that, you see the instructor's name up here. Additional instructors, you're not going to need to worry about that. You can purchase a discounted loose leaf copy of your text if you really want to, or you can simply open up this copy, which is your e-book, and you can scroll through it, reading to your heart's content. Notice that you're going to want to scroll down to see all of the material. You can't just let it sit on one page. You need to be able to look at the entire page. So just be aware. And you've got some reading assignments that are going to be, that are already coming up. So just for that, you would want to go back to your to the D2L site, and you could look at the detailed course calendar for that type of information. And I, in fact, encourage you to keep both browsers open, D2L and your online text. And you can see in D2L, the first assignments are chapters 1 and 2, the humanities and introduction, what is a work of art, and then you will have a quiz and so forth that is associated with that. So let's pop back over to the text, and let's actually pop back up to our class. And notice how when I click on our text, it actually opens up a completely different window. So, keep as many browser windows open as you'd like. But let's just take a look at this first section, chapter 1. And if we click on that, this gives us a reading assignment. And it says if you click on begin, that is also going to open up your text, but right to where you need to be, rather than going through all of the introduction and so forth. So just letting you know that is what's here. And when you get to the end of the chapter and you're into the next chapter, you would need to go back to where we were. And for that, you can click back onto the Connect, the McGraw-Hill Connect website that we were just at. You can close any of these windows out that you wish. Notice how chapters 1 and 2, the writing portion of it, this is a quiz. If you click on that, it says requires instructor grading. So this is just letting you know that I will be grading what you do. And then you can click on this begin to start this. Now, let me just give you an example of what happens when you do. Notice how it's showing you assignment details, 110 points. It's not due until August 20th and so forth. You can just keep on clicking continue, but look at this. Which statement best corresponds with the author's approach to the humanities? And you just have all these statements, multiple choice. So it is nearly impossible to fully analyze works of art that are not considered beautiful. Matters of taste are indisputable. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The commercial success of a work of art is the best way to understand its value, and going beyond the facts to the values that evoke our feelings. So it says which statement best corresponds with the author's approach to the humanities. And for that, you'd have to have read the chapter, and you might look at it from this standpoint. And once you answer the question, you click next, you're brought to the next question. So I'm just letting you know, and then once you have done or completed all of the questions, and there are 11 of them, you would click submit. Okay, so that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen, as far as it says here, you have 10 incomplete questions. Visit the question map. You can also cancel at this point, or you can submit. I believe if you hit submit, you would only get 10 points. So I hope everybody understands that you have to answer all of the questions in order to get all of the credit. Okay, so each one of these sections is set up this way, and each one of them contains this reading component as well as a writing component. So, all right, folks, that is our online text. Hopefully, this has given you some insight into how this works.
Okay, so I hope that was informative and helpful to everyone. Again, if at any point you have any questions about the assignments, the online text, getting around D2L, any of those things, just send me an email. Having said that, remember, I do not respond to emails on the weekends. If you email me on a Friday after 5 p.m., you're not going to hear back from me until the following Monday. So just be aware, some time may expire. I try to respond to all emails within 24 to 48 hours, but in the summer it's a little different because I just don't have the same amount of time available to me, and quite frankly, I go out of town with my family too. So please, just make sure you understand that if you email me on a Friday, you're not going to hear back from me on Saturday or Sunday, but the following Monday. If it becomes absolutely necessary for us to speak together directly, we can set up a face-to-face meeting or a virtual meeting if it absolutely has to happen. Having said that, understand that Delta observes what are called Green Fridays, which means that essentially all the departments, the entire college, is closed on Fridays in the summer months. So no one, faculty or staff, are really available on Fridays in person. As of right now, the S-Wing, where my office is located, is actually under renovations. So I can't even get to my office. So the reason I mention this to you is please don't call my office phone and leave me a voicemail. I'm not going to get it. I can't get into my office, folks. I can't respond to your voicemails yet. I won't hear your voicemail until probably after the course ends. Email is the best way. Email is the quickest way. And I will gladly respond to you as quickly as I possibly can. All right, so that pretty much is all there is. And we'll be talking periodically about what it is that we're going to be looking at. And our first section, we're looking at what is art, right? What is art as it relates to the human experience? And we're going to be looking at other things like what does it mean to be a critic of the arts, those types of things. So as I said earlier, these are what do you think type of questions. So this is not something that has a set, really any set rules. However, you must read the material that's presented on your online text because the questions and the quiz are going to be based on that material. And the essay, short essay questions that you're going to be given, again, based on that material that's found in the online text. So please do read the stuff. Try to complete one section a week. If you want to do 2, good for you. If you want to go ahead and get everything done between now and let's say 2-3 weeks from now, up to you. But you're not going to receive a grade till after the class is over. So just be aware, okay? So I hope this has been informative for you. If you have any questions regarding our online text or the e-learning site or anything about the course in general, please do not hesitate to email me. I will respond as quickly as I can. Take care, folks. I look forward to getting to know each of you, and we'll talk again soon. See ya.
Love makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? There's nothing too good for a girl that's so true. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you. Bought you a fur coat for Christmas, a diamond ring, a Cadillac car, and everything. Love makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you?